Hey everybody, I'm Ed. I'm the founder and CEO of Avegant. I first wanted to point out that you guys probably all know about VR, and probably some of you know about AR, augmented reality. But in the past decade, what we've seen is the whole landscape of computing has changed from PCs and laptops, like you see here, to the mobile device. I'm sure everyone here has a smartphone. But 10 years ago, we probably didn't have smartphones. And think about how our lives have changed with these new computing devices. These new companies, new services in our lives. This includes text messaging, Uber, Airbnb, Twitter. So many multi-billion-dollar companies, so many new applications and verticals have all been transformed by the mobile phone. But what if I told you in 10 years from now, we may not have smartphones anymore? That's really crazy to think about. But 10 years ago, that was true. But 10 years from now, we're going to have devices that look more like this. The reason why our smartphones are limited in size is primarily because of the screen and what can fit in our pocket. But what if the world became our display, where we could put images and objects anywhere we want in the entire world, right, within our real world, as if these virtual objects and virtual information were part of our world? This is what augmented reality is going to do for us, and this is why it's such a transformative industry. Every internet company, every smartphone manufacturer, every computer manufacturer today is investing billions of dollars into this space, because this is the device that's ultimately going to replace the smartphones that we have in our pocket. And Avegant, what we work on is we work on the display technologies that go inside these products. The displays themselves are the single most difficult and most valuable generating part of these products in the future. So I want to introduce you to a couple display technologies that we work on and that we provide for some of our customers. When I started this company 6 years ago, we were working on retinal projection displays. Screenless displays where we used millions of micromirrors, like you see here, to directly project light onto your retina. And this resulted in incredibly clear, incredibly sharp images that didn't have a screen. They were so comfortable, you could wear them for hours at a time. And we actually launched this technology into the consumer market in a product called the Glyph. And you can see here's the Glyph. You can see here's a little spot we had on The Tonight Show. And the Glyph was all about super high quality mobile media. To have a movie theater screen that was incredibly high fidelity, resolution, color, pixel free, some of the most comfortable displays that you'd ever seen. And what's interesting when we launched the Glyph about 3 or 4 years ago is that it was the first time people saw a wearable display that was such high fidelity, that people were literally plugging them into their computers and using them as a second screen. It was the first time anyone could read text with a wearable display. And that was pretty exciting to us. And that's why we started working on augmented reality displays and augmented reality technologies, building displays that are actually transparent. One of the key challenges in AR is something that's called a light field technology. And this gets a little bit technical, but what this means is that when I look out into the world, the way our eyes perceive the world is we see the world in multiple distances or multiple focus, right? But the problem with AR technologies today is when I put a virtual object out in the world, the focus is fixed. I actually can't move that object farther or closer because of the way my eyes focus on that. And that's extremely limiting the type of experiences that we all want to have. To give you an example, one of the key things that we're able to enable is an experience like this, where we actually have demos like this, where you put your hand out and you can actually see a virtual object sitting in the palm of your hand that looks so real. And at the same time, we can put more objects in the background. So when I look at my hand, the object is in focus, it looks like it's in my hand. And when I look farther away, objects farther away come into focus. But also, very importantly, the closer objects go out of focus. It's not just what is in focus that matters, it's what is out of focus that matters as well. And our light field technology is the first multifocal displays that the industry has ever seen. And this allows us to put virtual objects into the real world at any distance to make things feel super realistic. Some of the experiences that our partners want to have, especially in the consumer space, are things like this. They want the ability to have a new computing interface. Instead of being limited to a rectangle and a screen that you carry around in your pocket, suddenly any surface, any space in the world can become part of your computer. Something like perhaps something wrist-worn, an interface that I can actually touch and see and interface with my own fingers and hands. And at the same time, see objects that are farther away. An experience like kind of a virtual Skype or a virtual FaceTime, where maybe I'm not really here, and you're looking at me, and I'm in Silicon Valley, and this can feel realistic to you, even though I'm not really here. These type of technologies are not that far away. So we fully expect that consumer augmented reality devices will be coming to the market in the next 2 or 3 years. We're starting to see a lot of AR applications already today on your smartphone. Very early things, such as Pokemon Go is a great application, but there's going to be a lot more applications that are launching today. If you have iOS 12 in your iPhone, you already have some AR functionalities built into that. And it's pretty incredible that us as consumers, hundreds of millions of us, are starting to get familiar with what augmented reality can do. Something like Snapchat is a great example. Facial filters. That's augmented reality, even though people don't necessarily recognize that. So from a grand scheme, from a timeline standpoint, what I'm kind of excited about is we are actually here, right? This big brick phone with a floppy antenna, right? We're actually starting to see real products in the real world. And these started out just like the cell phone started out. It started out in the enterprise space, right? We're starting to see companies like, aerospace companies like Boeing and Airbus. We're starting to see a lot of exploration companies and engineering design companies. They're starting to embrace augmented reality because it provides an experience and value that they haven't been able to have before. But the devices that we see now are still, they're big and they're chunky, right? They're kind of like a Microsoft HoloLens, if you've seen that, where they provide great value, but they're still big and bulky and expensive. They're not really for consumers. But I fully expect that in the next 2 or 3 years, we are going to start to see augmented reality devices for consumers, right? You might be able to go into a store and buy a Facebook-branded AR glasses or Apple-branded AR glasses in the next couple of years. So it's really important for everybody here to understand what is augmented reality, what is it good for, and what can you do about it now as consumers or as developers or even in your own fields? How can this change our industry? What's exciting about the work that we do is we're pushing display technologies that go into this product. We're working with some of the largest companies in the world. And even though we're starting to see these early devices hit the market, which is great, and starting to see consumers work with AR on their smartphones and the mobile devices, we're working on technologies that are enabling what I would call the iPhone of AR. We're starting to see where those technologies are going to drive us into these slim form factor glasses that have incredible performance, large fields of view, high resolution, low power devices. That's really going to enable the type of experiences that we all expect as consumers. So sit tight. This is probably like a couple of years before the launch of an iPhone kind of moment, right? So be ready. Just like the smartphone industry has totally transformed all of our lives in the next decade, it's all going to happen again starting in about 2 or 3 years. So consider this a fair warning to what's going to happen to a lot of our industries and devices. Thank you.